Most leaders don't lose influence overnight. There's rarely a big collapse, a scandal, or a single catastrophic moment. Instead, influence erodes quietly, drip by drip, decision by decision. It starts when urgency replaces empathy, when confidence starts sounding like certainty, when what worked before becomes what I always do. No one intends to fall into these traps. But the truth is, the same instincts that help you rise can eventually become the habits that make you stall. The qualities that got you promoted, decisiveness, energy, charisma, can, if left unchecked, start working against you. You don't notice it at first. Your title still holds weight, your voice still commands the room. But slowly, the echo grows louder than the connection. And here's the painful part. When leaders stop seeing the cracks, their people stop showing them. That's how influence dies, not from failure, but from blindness. In this episode, we're counting down the 7 leadership traps that quietly kill influence. These are not obvious mistakes. They're subtle, seductive habits that start as strengths, but over time, shift from helpful to harmful. Let's count them down. Trap number 7, they talk more than they listen. Every great leader begins as a great observer. But once influence grows, something dangerous happens. Leaders start believing that people follow them for what they say instead of how they listen. The higher you climb, the quieter the room becomes. People stop challenging you. They start performing for you. They nod. They agree. They echo. And if you mistake silence for support, you're leading in an illusion. Real influence is not built on the volume of your words. It's built on the weight of your understanding. Listening is leadership's most underrated superpower. Consider this. When people feel heard, they work harder, not because they were told to, but because they feel seen. And yet, most leaders interrupt more than they inquire. One executive I coached, Alex, struggled with team engagement. He said, "I ask for ideas, but no one speaks up." So I sat in one of his meetings. Within 10 minutes, he'd interrupted 4 people, finishing their sentences, correcting details, jumping ahead. Afterward, I told him, "You asked for ideas, but you answered for them." He looked stunned. I didn't even realize. That's the trap. The louder you get, the less you hear. Listening isn't passive. It's strategic. It's how you detect early warning signs before they become problems. It's how you turn compliance into commitment. Consider this leadership mindset habit. Where in your leadership are you hearing words but missing meaning? What can you do this week to listen so deeply that people start speaking differently? Trap number 6. They confuse control with clarity. Leaders love clarity. Teams crave it. But many leaders confuse control for clarity. Control says, "I'll make sure everything goes exactly my way." Clarity says, "I'll make sure everyone knows the way." The difference seems small, but the impact is massive. Control creates dependence. Clarity creates direction. When leaders start micromanaging, rewriting emails, revising every presentation, demanding updates every hour, they're not creating clarity. They're creating chaos disguised as care. I once worked with a manager named Dana who prided herself on staying involved, but her team called it something else, micromanaging. She thought she was helping. They felt she was hindering. One day, a teammate finally told her, "We don't need your approval. We need your trust." It hit hard, but it changed everything. Control is fear wearing confidence as clothes. It looks like excellence, but it's really anxiety. When leaders replace control with clarity, everything shifts. Meetings get shorter. Ownership gets stronger. People start making decisions instead of waiting for direction. True clarity isn't about being in control. It's about being understood. Consider this leadership mindset habit. Where are you managing details that don't require your fingerprints? What's one area where you could trade control for clarity this week? Trap number 5. They reward results and ignore growth. This one's tricky because results matter. But when they become all that matters, growth dies quietly in the background. Leaders love metrics. They're clean, measurable, clear. But people aren't spreadsheets. When you only celebrate outcomes, you teach people that what they achieve matters more than how they grow. And that's how burnout begins. In one organization I observed, quarterly awards went exclusively to top performers: sales, numbers, revenue. After 2 years, turnover doubled. Why? Because the same names were called every quarter, and the rest of the team stopped believing they mattered. The leader wasn't cruel. He just forgot that recognition fuels resilience. Results are short-term wins. Growth is long-term capacity. And your team can't sustain the first without the second. The best leaders don't just reward success, they develop it. They recognize effort, coach improvement, and celebrate learning. Because growth compounds faster than results ever will. Consider this leadership mindset habit. Where are you praising productivity but overlooking development? What one conversation could you have this week that focuses on growth instead of goals? Trap number 4. They forget to follow their own rule. Influence lives or dies by integrity. And integrity is simply consistency between what you say and what you do. But as leaders rise, the rules start to bend. Not because they're unethical, but because they're busy. The standard they once enforced starts to soften. The deadlines they once demanded start to slip. And the accountability they once modeled gets replaced by rationalization. Just this once. I'm the exception. I'll get back to it later. The problem? Everyone's watching. Leadership magnifies inconsistency. Your smallest exceptions become someone else's permission slip. I once asked a leader, "Why do you think your team's missing deadlines?" He said, "They've gotten too casual." So I asked, "When was the last time you hit one yourself?" Silence. That's the trap. The moment your behavior stops matching your expectations, your credibility starts collapsing. Because leadership isn't positional, it's behavioral. You don't inspire compliance through authority, you inspire commitment through alignment. People don't just listen to what you say. They copy what you do. Consider this leadership mindset habit. Where are you subtly excusing in yourself what you'd never accept in your team? What one standard could you recommit to this week to restore credibility through consistency? Trap number 3. They chase speed over stability. Speed looks like progress, until it doesn't. Modern leadership celebrates urgency. Move fast. Be agile. Don't slow down. But fast doesn't always mean forward. The danger is this. When leaders start worshiping momentum more than meaning, they lose direction. They burn energy, not progress. I once met a CEO who bragged about how fast his company moved. But behind the scenes, his people were exhausted. Projects launched half-finished. Teams were in constant crisis mode. They weren't innovative, they were reactive. Speed without strategy isn't leadership. It's panic with good branding. There's a difference between moving quickly and moving wisely. Stability gives speed purpose. Think of a sprinter versus a marathoner. Both move fast, but one burns out while the other endures. The goal isn't to go faster, it's to go further. And you can't do that if your team's running on fumes. Leaders who chase speed over stability eventually mistake activity for achievement. The best leaders know that pace is power. They protect energy so they can sustain excellence. Consider this leadership mindset habit. Where are you pushing for speed when what your team needs is stability? What could you slow down this week to make progress more sustainable? Trap number 2. They lead for visibility instead of impact. There's a moment in every leader's journey when recognition feels better than results. It's the moment when applause starts to matter more than alignment. When being seen feels like being successful. But here's the truth. You can be visible without being valuable. When leaders start chasing attention, likes, titles, credit, they stop leading for change and start performing for praise. And influence built on visibility is fragile, because it depends on validation. Real impact rarely trends. It happens quietly, in the one-on-one conversation, the tough feedback, the moment you choose integrity over image. A leader once told me, "The higher I climbed, the more I started curating myself." He meant that he stopped being real, started editing everything to protect the brand. But people can't follow a performance. They follow a person. When you lead for visibility, you attract fans. When you lead for impact, you build followers, the kind who carry your mission long after you're gone. Consider this leadership mindset habit. Where are you choosing perception over purpose? What one decision this week could you make for impact, even if no one sees it? Trap number 1. They stop learning once they're leading. The final trap is the quietest and the deadliest. It happens when leaders confuse experience with evolution. They've been doing this long enough, they think. They've got it figured out. And that's when growth stops. The moment you stop learning, your leadership starts aging, even if you're still performing. Because influence is a living thing. It grows only when you do. Every great leader you admire still sees themselves as a student. They study new industries. They ask better questions. They invite feedback that most people would avoid. They know what many forget. Your title might give you authority, but only learning keeps you relevant. I once asked a veteran executive what kept him sharp after 30 years. He said, "I never assume I'm right. I assume I can be better." That's it. That's the mindset that sustains leadership beyond the honeymoon phase. The hunger to grow keeps humility alive, and humility keeps influence alive. Consider this leadership mindset habit. Where have you become a teacher but stopped being a student? What one new idea, book, or voice could you learn from this week to reignite your growth? Leadership doesn't collapse all at once. It fades through subtle traps, good intentions misapplied, strengths overused, patterns unexamined. Let's recap the 7 traps that quietly kill influence. Trap number 7. They talk more than they listen. Trap number 6. They confuse control with clarity. Trap number 5. They reward results and ignore growth. Trap number 4. They forget to follow their own rules. Trap number 3. They chase speed over stability. Trap number 2. They lead for visibility instead of impact. Trap number 1. They stop learning once they're leading. Avoiding these traps isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. Awareness creates adjustment. Adjustment creates alignment. And alignment restores influence. Here's your leadership mindset challenge. Pick one of these 7 traps that you see in yourself or your organization. For the next 7 days, work intentionally to reverse it. At the end of the week, ask yourself, what changed? Your answers will reveal how influence grows from within. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a leader who's ready to grow deeper, not just louder. Follow Leadership Mindset Daily for daily reflections, strategies, and stories that sharpen your focus and strengthen your mindset. And remember, avoiding these traps isn't about being flawless. It's about being faithful to the growth that got you here. This is Leadership Mindset Daily. Mindset matters. Leadership matters. You matter. Follow Leadership Mindset Daily on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, and X for your daily dose of proven leadership development tips, tricks, and techniques. See you tomorrow.